My name is Morgan Adams, and this is the Nutrition Assignment 1 resubmission. This is the second part of my resubmission. I'll be talking about the benefits of each of the 7 nutrients for both marathon runners and weightlifters. For carbohydrates, a marathon runner will need around 70% of their diet to be carbs. The reason why carbohydrates are such a large portion of their diets is because they must be running for at least 2 hours during every single race and throughout training. Specifically, they will need a lot of complex carbohydrates to ensure that the energy is broken down slowly throughout the race. Complex carbs are hard to break down, that means they're slow to break down, so a marathon runner will be able to access little pieces of energy from the carbohydrates throughout the race, and they won't use it all at one time. However, during the sprint finish, at the end of the race, they'll need simple carbohydrates to be broken down quickly and used in their muscles straight away. They can get the simple carbohydrates from glucose gel packs or Lucozades that they drink throughout the race. The impact that carbohydrates have on performance, that if the marathon runner doesn't have enough carbohydrates, then near the end of the race they'll be unable to sustain the performance levels because they'll be low on energy. So they may start off running at a world record time, but if they get to the 15-mile mark and they're slowing down, it's unlikely that they're going to be able to pick up the time again because their carbohydrate stores have run out. The next nutrient is protein. While training and running daily, they will tear their muscle fibers, so they need to repair this. Naturally, when running for over 2 hours, muscle fiber tears will occur. It is important to keep protein intake at around 15% and not lower because it is a key role on recovery and growth. The impact on performance that protein has is during training, if your muscle fibers are adapting to the demands of what you're training for. So, for example, a marathon runner, he'll be training for around 2 to 2.5 hours, training his muscles to work that way. So when those muscle fibers are broken down, they'll be able to repair, and once they've repaired, they are able to run for the 2.5 hours. So this will improve performance because they are more used to this exercise, meaning that they'll be better suited to it and they'll be able to get a better time in the race. If they had not enough protein, then their muscle fibers will be weak. They'll be unable to sustain performance because their body will not be used to it. The next nutrient is fats. Fats should stay around 15% in a marathon runner's diet as it plays an important role in energy production. Thermoregulation and the taste of fats are important in any diet to keep a varied diet. The impact that fats have on performance are that fats protect the cells in the body. So when the marathon runner's legs are pounding against the pavements or different terrains, the cells in the body are unharmed. They stay in good state. So that helps the marathon runner with other daily needs other than just marathon running. Also, they're a good source of energy. So after the carbohydrates and the protein have broken down, they'll use their fat stores in the last stages of the race, meaning that they can use that as in the last couple of miles. The micronutrients are also important. For example, the minerals. Minerals such as sodium is important as it stops dehydration and helps to regulate water balance. Marathon runners will be carrying a lot of fluids and need nutrients to working muscles, so using water to help transport the nutrients is beneficial to them. Also, dehydration, especially for a marathon runner, will cause their performance to decrease rapidly. The impact that minerals such as sodium have on performance is that it helps to regulate water balance. So if the body is in need of water to be able to transport nutrients to the working muscles, it can keep the water in the body, or if it needs to be used for thermoregulation for sweating, it can activate more sweat if needed. And also being dehydrated as a marathon runner will cause their performance to decrease rapidly because the nutrients will not be able to travel to the working limbs meaning that the marathon runner can't propel themselves forward, so it's important that there's a good flow of water throughout the energy system. Another mineral is zinc. Zinc is also important for a marathon runner as it helps with respiration. It helps to extract carbon dioxide from the working muscles and also the waste products. This allows them to be efficient in both breathing and their running because zinc is helping them to extract waste products from the blood. The impact that zinc has on performance is that when extracting carbon dioxide, it allows more oxygen to be taken into the muscle and nutrients, so that the more nutrients and oxygen in the muscle allows it to use it up as energy, and the sooner carbon dioxide is released from the muscle and respired out, the more oxygen can be taken in. And also it helps to be efficient in breathing, so you can save energy from breathing to use into the running. Other waste products will also be removed from the blood. The vitamins are important as well for a marathon runner. I suggest vitamin B and vitamin D. Vitamin B is important in the production of energy. The marathon runner relies on this as they will always need energy throughout the 2 hours of the race. This allows them enough energy to finish the race strongly and record a good time. If a marathon runner had a lack of vitamin B in their diet, it would mean that in the latter stages of the race they will be unable to keep up the high tempo of their running or their running style, which means performance will decrease and the time will extend, so they may lose out of place or they may lose 5-10 seconds on their time. The next vitamin is vitamin D. Vitamin D helps with calcium absorption. The sliding filament theory uses calcium to contract the muscles, and because marathon runners will always be contracting their limbs during the race, it helps actin and myosin to contract the muscle. So as the actin and myosin are contracting together, they're using calcium to create that bond, and if there's no calcium in the muscles at the time, it struggles to contract as forcefully to make the bond. So this is when you'll see a marathon runner, they'll start out and their legs will be kicking and their arms will be moving to get some momentum, and near the end of the race they may be not moving their legs as far forward to not propel their bodies there. That reduces the level of performance if they didn't have enough vitamin D. However, if they did have enough of vitamin D, if they had plenty of it, then in the final 100, 200 meters, they'll be able to kick on and beat their previous time. Fiber doesn't really affect performance as such. Fiber should stay at around 18 grams per day as it does not affect sporting performance. However, the recommended daily allowance is set at 18 grams as it helps to stop things such as stomach upsets. This does have a slight impact on performance because if a marathon runner 2 days before the race was struggling with some bowel problems or some stomach ache, they could ensure that they have enough fiber per day for the next 2 days to ensure that they aren't suffering with that on the race day. If they were suffering on the race day with some stomach problems, it will decrease their time because they'll be more focused on their stomach than the race. Another very important micronutrient is water. Water needs to be significantly increased for a marathon runner compared to a normal person, as they will lose a lot of water through sweat. 3 to 4 litres a day would be good. Water also helps with the nutrient transport and thermoregulation, which is sweating. This benefits the marathon runner as they can transport energy through the nutrients to all the muscles, allowing the muscles to contract forcefully throughout the race. If a marathon runner is dehydrated, they will not be able to keep up their performance levels because of the lack of nutrient transport. They will not be able to win races because of this reduction in performance. If a marathon runner didn't have the 3 to 4 litres, say if they're having 1.5 litres, very soon in the race they'll find that there isn't enough oxygen or nutrients getting to the muscles, and this means that this will halt their performance because the limbs won't be supplied with energy, so they can't propel the person forward. Now moving on to the weightlifter. The first nutrient is carbohydrates. The nutrient is reduced to 55% compared to the marathon runner's 70%. It needs to make up most of the diet again because energy is key in every sport and everyday life. In training without energy from the carbohydrates, they'll be unable to improve their muscle capability, meaning that performance never improves. In competition, the weightlifter who will need a lot more simple carbohydrates than a marathon runner, as they use the energy in short bursts, whereas the marathon runner uses complex carbs to spread the energy out throughout the race. The impact on performance that this has is if a weightlifter got less than 55%, if they got 30% of carbohydrates, they'll be unable to function properly, as because they're using a lot of energy and also tearing a lot of muscle fibers. That they need the energy from the carbs to spread out through the whole day, because it's not their day is not just training for an hour or 2 hours, because it's an anaerobic sport, so they need the aerobic energy from the carbohydrates to work properly away from their performing. The fats are at 20% of the intake of macros. This has been decreased from most ordinary people. Specifically, fats are used for protecting the cells in the body. The stress that the weightlifters put on their body means that their cells are at risk of damage. By being structurally sound, the cells are at less risk of damaging. Having enough fat protects the cells while weightlifting. So while a deadlifter is deadlifting hundreds of kilograms of weight in their um, in their event, they'll also be putting a lot of strains on the cells in their body. So it's important to keep the cells working well. Also, fats are a good source of energy. So in a performance, if in an Olympic sport, it'll be useful in the later stages of the competition to use this source of fat. The next macro is protein. This is vital for the weightlifter for growth and repair of the muscle. I recommend that they have 25% of protein in their diet. The weightlifter needs to grow grow their muscle fibers, because in theory, the more muscle mass you have, the higher amount of force you can exert. By improving in training and breaking down the muscle fibers, they'll be able to lift heavier weights in the future. If growth and repair from the proteins happens properly, it will definitely benefit performance by increasing their heaviest lift. So by breaking down the muscle fibers and getting them used to a new level of weight to be lifted, they'll get used to that new weight, and that means in the next event they can lift a heavier 1 rep max. The micronutrients are vitamins, minerals. First I'll look at is vitamins. I've chosen vitamin D and E. Vitamin D is important for the weightlifter because the muscle contractions and stronger bones. It works alongside calcium, which improves bone strength, and this is needed as the weightlifter puts a lot of weight on their bones. So their bones need to be able to cope with the high amounts of force. If they can't cope, then the force will break or chip the bones, leading to long injury layoffs. Vitamin E is important as it protects cells. Similarly to fat, they protect cell structures, allowing the weightlifter to lift heavy weights with no implications on the cells in his body, allowing them to perform at the best of their ability. Minerals such as potassium and calcium are also important. Potassium is important as it allows effective nerve functions. For example, in the clean and jerk movement in weightlifting, it requires a lot of skill and a lot of brain, like hand-eye coordination, for example. If your nerves are not working properly to move the limbs in the way of the clean and jerk movement, it could cause an injury. Your arm could hyperextend, or your leg could lock out. Also, the central nervous system will require potassium to transmit these nerve impulses effectively, which will improve performance. The more effective the nerve impulses are, the better your performance will be. I've said calcium is important to allow heavy weights to be lifted on bone and also to help muscle contractions. Fiber should stay at 18 grams again. As I said before, with the marathon runner, doesn't really affect performance directly, but if you're feeling bogged down on the day of performance or a couple of days before, be sure to get enough fiber to reduce the pain in the stomach. Also, water will be less than a marathon runner, but more than the average person, because they will still be sweating a lot, so it'll be thermoregulation, and because they don't work for a long period of time, they won't need as much water. However, they will still need water to get the the oxygen and the nutrients to their muscles to work in that anaerobic state. It will also keep them hydrated throughout the event so that their performance does not decrease because there's no nutrients going to their muscles.